Welcome everyone to the program today. My name is Kelly Henson. I am the brand and marketing manager here at DBA Platform, and it's our goal to get your business found. If you are a regular attendee of our webinars, you're probably used to seeing Sarah Bryant. She's our Chief Marketing Officer. She has passed the baton over to me, so I'm excited to continue these webinars with all of you and talk about all things local SEO. So today we are going to be talking about a lot of the new developments that we have been seeing in the local SEO space, right? From Google profile changes to everything else with AI, Apple Business Connect, and a lot of those programs are new. So we'll try to give you some insight information, but we're learning along with you on that front. Additionally, we'll, of course, have our panel discussion and best local SEO tips. So we have a small panel today just because we had some last minute cancellations, but we still have a good group of guys that know what they're talking about and are experts in the industry. So I'm excited to have them on. Before I get to introductions, I do quickly just want to make sure that everyone knows where they can ask questions so that we can answer them quickly and hopefully get to all of them. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see your Zoom control bar. This Zoom control bar, you'll see a chat and a Q&A. Make sure to use the Q&A section. The Q&A section is where everyone can see your questions, and this is great because you can actually upvote those questions. And we want to utilize that so that we can see the questions that are the most popular. What do we need to get to first at the end of our webinar? And we'll try to get through all of them, but make sure to keep that open, ask your questions there, and upvote any questions that you see and that you also want to be answered. So if you throw anything in the chat, we'll tell you to switch it over to the Q&A so that we can answer it for everyone and so that everyone can see it. We had a couple cancellations on our panel today, like I mentioned, so I don't think Rachel's on with us, but we do have Kevin and Stefan with us today. Kevin is the technical SEO advisor for Rotate Digital. He's also the owner of Simple SEO, and he really enjoys just nerding out on everything SEO and web development. And so with all of our updates today, I'm sure he'll have some interesting insight. Additionally, we have Stefan Simborak, and hopefully I said your last name correct, but he is the founder at Marketing Meteorology, and he's also a Google business product expert. So we're happy to have him on because he definitely has some of that background technical expertise that everyone's always kind of looking for, especially when they're just getting started in the local SEO strategy. So next, I'll introduce our host. So again, if you're a regular attendee, you're probably very familiar with Jan, but he's one of our favorite to introduce, not only because he's the resident product expert here at DBA Platform, but he's also one of the very few to actually be a part of the Google Platinum product expert team. If I got that all right, it's a bit of a long name right there. But yeah, he's part of that team. And so he kind of has that inside scoop for us as well. And he's also the creator of Local Falcon, which is the original rank and grid tracking system. So we love to point that out because that system, Local Falcon, can give you insight into how your business or the businesses that you manage rank on Google and give you that background on that you need to be able to actually improve your local SEO. So without further ado, though, I'll kind of turn things over to Jan so that he can get us started on today's webinar and get us started on all of our topics we have lined up for you.
Super. Thanks, Kelly. So I'm going to always start with the new categories for Google, your Google business profile. This month, and even the previous month, there wasn't too much interesting that I can see as far as local, a garden machinery supplier. Maybe that could be a secondary category, potentially, but the other ones, nothing jumps out of me that really will be too helpful unless you're, a restaurant or a grocery store from the previous month. So nothing too new. Sometimes there's some good additions. So I always do this because if you get the jump, the leg up on your competitors, then you get that little bonus ahead of time. So I always like to tell you guys what's brand new in the Google profiles. Other than that, we're going to go through a couple of the Microsoft programs. They have a bunch of new auto stuff to talk about. There's been a Google Core update, and there's the new Apple Business Connect, which was actually in January, but we haven't had a panel webinar since then. And then, of course, we'll leave for last chat GPT, or the AI chat bots, whatever they're calling them, and we'll have a good discussion about that and how to use that for local and how to make your life more efficient or your work more efficient, and some ideas about that. So we'll just start with the automotive inventory ads. And so, nothing too exciting if you're not in the auto space, but basically Google has auto ads. And so now Microsoft is copying that as well. And so if you're in that space, it's super important that you get in there as quickly as possible. And the earlier you get in, and of course, DBA platform can do all that connection for you. Again, if you're ahead of your competitors, then you don't have to pay as much for the ads and you're more upfront, and you can get all that good stuff ahead of them. So.
Yeah. And I'm going to have a shameless plug for DBA platform, just because we've been working really closely with Microsoft. We participated in the Google Vehicle Ads pilot program. And so we were really involved in that. And we're really passionate about the Google Vehicle Ads because we've seen such great success. And it's a great option for people that are wanting to get their products right in front of the customers that are searching for them. And so because we had so much great success with that program, we were like, Microsoft, we want to be a part of this, because Microsoft AIAs are really something that's a complementary program to be running with your Google Vehicle Ads. So I know not everyone on this call is here for auto, but if you're auto, if you're retail, if you have products that are in store, definitely connect with us later, because this is a complementary program. And the setup is actually included if you're already on our auto or retail program. So we'll get you set up and kind of give you the details on the side, but it's definitely worth it. And typically what we've been seeing is about a fourth of the cost of what's being spent on Google. And so even though it's not as large of a user base, it's definitely one that is intentionally using this platform. And that can actually really help us when we're trying to get those lower funnel leads. So.
And there's more people in general even for local, there's more people using Bing now, and Microsoft connects to like all these other it has a whole network just like Google, but there's more people because of the Bing GPT. More people have gone to Bing and checked it out, and so there's typically Bing was less than 10% of usually, and if you check your analytics, it was a smaller percentage, but now there's a much larger percentage trying Bing out. So it's still worth to at least go and check your local listings there and get those set up properly, and do all the same work that you were doing on Google for your local listings to make sure that they're up to snuff and your branding is properly represented there.
Right. And one other interesting point that, I think we all know, but sometimes we don't think about with Microsoft is a lot of, people that work remotely or not remotely, a lot of businesses do use Microsoft. And a lot of times these browsers are their only option. So if you're wanting to capture users that are on their work computers, whether that be on or off hours, this is definitely a great option, and you don't want to kind of miss that pool of people. So.
I'll add one more thing. I have set up some clients with local listings on Bing, and ran into some complications with duplicate entries and so on. And the support staff that I engaged with was remarkable. So if you're used to dealing with Google, can be a really frustrating experience, Microsoft seems to do that much better. So even if you don't have a lot of experience with it, they seem to have good support. So it's worth exploring, knowing that they've got your back.
All right. The Google Core update. So I'm sure we have more to talk about here. So there's just general information there. So it takes 2 weeks. They announce the start, they announce the end date. So when they're done, they'll let us know, usually on Twitter. People will they see it first when it gets announced. And the core updates don't usually affect the maps. So it's just the organic rankings, but you never know if they're adjusting some link parameters. If they're turning a lot of dials this time, it might affect the maps. I haven't seen too much news. There's a graph there, and you see it. The first day they announced it, there was a SERP volatility there. You can see that graph around March 16th or 15th there. So there was a spike, and then it settled down. I haven't heard too many tweets. I've seen too many tweets or discussions about, oh my gosh, things are going crazy up and down. It's been pretty quiet for a core update. I don't know if you guys have seen anything different, or if it's affecting different industries in a certain way. Stefan or Kevin, nothing.
Yeah, no, it hasn't seemed to move much or move anything for that matter from what I've seen.
Yeah, it's odd, right? I just find usually there's so much chatter about what's going on. So maybe if people are listening and they've had wild swings in their organic rankings, why don't you let us know what industry you're in, and we can maybe take a look afterwards, and we can see if there's anything specifically. Because in a way, I want to see what's swinging up and down, because then it helps me understand what they're tweaking and what Google might have changed, and then we can go and okay, that website went down a lot, that website went up a lot. What are they doing that is making them increase? But typically we wait till after the core update is done, because they'll roll stuff out and then they let it sit, and then they roll it back, or halfway roll it back, and then if you're boosted up in the rankings, then you fall right back down, and it's kind of frustrating during the core update. But I haven't seen any large discussions about it yet. All right, we'll keep moving on then. The Apple Maps relaunches Apple Business Connect. So it's not new news, it's a couple months old at this point, but we just wanted to mention it since we didn't have a big webinar about that. So similar to Bing, there's listings on Apple, and people are gravitating away from Google for certain things now, and there's a lot of users on Apple products. And so just make sure that you go and find your listing, or take charge of your listing, or create your listing, do whatever you need to do, just like you would do in Google and Bing.
Yeah, and also just for any of our participants that are using DBA platform, I know we also have a lot of attendees from our partner Local Falconon, but DBA is working on that API connection. So our goal is for you to be able to schedule and automate a lot of that management through our platform, just like you do for your Google profile. So that is in the works, and we know that a lot of people want it. So it is something that is at the top of our list for our developers. So that is coming, and I definitely think it's interesting to see Apple shift to that ecosystem where they're giving a bit more power to the business owners to claim and manage some of that information. So I think that's an interesting indicator of what it could become in the future.
Sure. Any thoughts?
I'll add that in some demographics, Apple devices are by far the most dominant. In the US, I mean, in some markets, they're really a premium product that aren't that popular. In the US, they represent more than half of the phones that are sold today. In some demographics, like I said, I think in late teens, early 20s, they represent 80% or more of the phones that are sold. So depending on who your target audience is, you might find that your audience is almost exclusively on iPhone. That doesn't really tell us about Apple Maps adoption, but I would imagine that if they're 80 or 90% of them are holding an iPhone, they are using or will start exploring Apple Maps. So it's definitely worth checking out. For the little amount of effort it takes to create that listing, you should create it and see if it helps drive traffic, because it really might with the right audience.
Yeah, we actually had 2 questions come into the Q&A that I think probably would be better to quickly address now instead of waiting to the end. And I'm not sure if we have the exact answers on this topic, but we'll try our best. So Emily was asking kind of about the claiming process. So Emily was saying that as they're claiming listings for Apple Maps, they're noticing that they have to have a lot more pieces, right? Like the business license and things like that. And so she was kind of asking if anyone had any best practices of how to claim and organize multiple Apple Maps listings. I'm not sure if we have the answer on that, but I do know that Apple is allowing you to bulk claim and manage, but I'm not sure if Jan, Stefan, or Kevin has any insight into that.
They're definitely more strict. So yeah, it's a lot harder to get your listing set up, because they do want to check a lot more. Apple is, and they've always been like this, they really want to control information, and they want to make sure that everything on their platform is correct. And the right information. So they're much more strict in when you're creating your listings, that they want to check a lot of background information to set it up. So I don't have any specific tricks to bypass that. That's what they're asking for. That's what you got to give them. And maybe through the API is easier. But yeah, I haven't done it personally. I know, Stefan, you said you were connecting yours, and I don't know what if they jammed you on certain questions or something.
I know that when you start the process, they do ask for some documentation. If you've ever been suspended on Google, it's kind of similar, but of course the difference is when you're setting up this Apple profile, they give you some guidance as to what they're asking for. And so I don't remember off the top of my head, but they do say provide, business registration, business license, insurance records, whatever it is. There's at least a little bit of guidance. A lot of people who have dealt with Google and the requirement for documentation there, it's a lot more of a black box. So from what I've seen, at least there's a little bit more transparency as to what they need from you.
Right. Like, even though they're needing more information, it kind of helps the business in the long run. And we actually have a blog kind of explaining the basics of Apple Business Connect. So I'll share that in the chat here shortly, and hopefully that will provide a little bit of insight. And again, because it is so new, we're kind of figuring these things out as we go. So thank you for your questions on this topic, because that also helps us understand what questions we need to get from the system and from our partners within the industry. So thank you for sharing that. And then one other, or I guess two other questions really quick on the Apple business topic is, do you guys know if, this is from Vince, he wants to know if listings can be locked down, or if any Apple user can submit a change like Google, or if you guys have seen anything like that since the switch over to Apple Business Connect.
I haven't tried. I would assume that if Apple is more strict and wants the documentation, that there'll be less chance for user edits to be able to be made. At least they probably won't go through automatically, potentially like on Google Maps, but that's just my assumption because I haven't tested it out.
Right.
Yeah, on that one, I haven't specifically done it, but when you're dealing with the API and you set up a business listing, and then if you want to go in and make changes, then, and you haven't claimed ownership for it, then there are hurdles with that. So then you have to prove who you are to make changes. So I would assume if you're just a regular user and you're trying to make changes on someone's profile or suggest edits, then it's going to go through that same process.
Yeah. And just as a personal user of Apple Maps, I feel like that's wrong to say since we focus so much on Google, but I'm definitely guilty of using Apple Maps because it just seems to be the easiest on my iPhone. I have come across business listings that are wrong, and it does look a little bit different than Google, but you can report an issue. And so I don't know how Apple handles those, but users can absolutely say, hey, these hours are wrong, and they can leave a comment and they can send that. But I don't think it automatically gets applied. I would assume that there's some kind of process either on Apple's side, or now that there's Apple Business Connect, hopefully that's getting also sent to the business owner and giving them the chance to correct it or deny it. But I think we'll learn those things in the next coming months. So we'll definitely make note of that and try to keep that top of mind to give you guys more information on.
There's another question I see, and it applies for all of it. What, like if you set up your business on Apple Maps, there's a similar question is like if you set up your business on Bing, is there a way to optimize it differently? I haven't really thought of a specific way. I mean, optimization is optimization. It's going to be really difficult now as an SEO to like, okay, well, how do we optimize for Apple Maps and then Bing and then Google, and then like it's going to start to get overwhelming if you try to like silo those kind of those optimization techniques. It's going to be very difficult, and I haven't gotten to that level. I don't know if anyone will be able to really do that very much, to be honest. I don't know if anyone has even tried.
It does raise an interesting question, doesn't it? Because Apple Maps is so new, nobody's talking about Apple Maps SEO. When you pull out Google Maps and you're looking for something like a pizza shop or whatever, the distance between you and that pizza shop is a huge factor. They're always close to you, and they tend to rank more or less in how far they are from you. There will be some variations based on other SEO factors, but those are the things that SEOs experiment with and understand, at least to some extent, right? As far as Apple Maps goes, is it just a proximity ranking? Or if it's not, if there's some other factors, something other than proximity, what are those factors? And I haven't heard any chatter on that. So it really is a new environment for SEO.
Absolutely. And to piggyback off that, and some of the things that you guys previously said, Donnie was asking, there isn't technically a local 3-pack for Apple Maps. So why focus on this? If like how is that going to help people? And I'll kind of let the experts answer that, but I think this shift, it's definitely an opportunity for businesses to claim their business and take control before there's, a lot of shifts in the Apple ecosystem. And simply put, if someone is using Apple Maps and it's proven that there are many users on this platform, you still want to claim your business. You still want to show up and you want to have accurate information, because that's what's going to drive traffic. So even though there may not be a 3-pack, there's users there. And if there's users there, then that would be my opinion on making sure that you've claimed your business in that space.
Yeah, I think that applies to the audience, and that we haven't even talked about yet is the CarPlay, if that's the right term, but Apple's interface for the automobile taps into Apple Maps. And so if somebody's using that as their navigation and you want to be found by them, you're going to have to be on Apple Maps.
Yep.
Definitely a lot of questions. Again, it's new, so there's probably going to be making lots of upgrades and tweaks and changes. And because it's a closed platform and it's hard to test, it's really difficult to test on Apple. We don't know like what the market share is compared to the other platforms. So there's a lot of unknowns. And so when we're faced with all those unknowns, is at least do the minimum, claim it, make sure it's the information is correct and that you're there. And then who knows how the ranking works over there. So just do the normal standard practices that you would do for Google, and hopefully they apply to the other 2 search engines at this point. For lack of information, you have to just keep going with what we know.
Yep. So I'll kind of move us along to our other topics, but to conclude this, I do just want to quickly address John's question, because I'm not sure if we made it clear. I know that we kind of get in our specialty terminology and go down a rabbit hole. John, Apple Business Connect, what we were just talking about, that is Apple's version of Google My Business, now referred to as Google Business Profile. So Apple, has made this shift where business owners can take control of their listing, just like Google Business Profile. So that's kind of what we were just talking about, is this new shift where you can claim your business on Apple Maps. So hopefully that answers your question, and we'll kind of move in, but if it doesn't, drop another question and we'll address it at the end.
Super. All right, let's go. AI. I think this is a little bit more interesting. Apple Maps is there's a lot of unknowns. There's going to be a lot of unknowns about the AI stuff as well, and I haven't had a chance to use Bard yet. It's still not open to everyone, and I tried out in Canada. I don't know, Stefan, if you're able to access, but they told me I wasn't able to access it yet, and it's for invitation only type of thing. You have to apply and wait for your turn, I guess. So I don't know if Stefan or Kevin have had access to it. Obviously, I've used the ChatGPT, and that's fun to use, and it's integrated into Bing now, and yeah, I'll let you guys speak a little bit, since I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah,
sorry.
Well, go ahead, Stefan.
Well, I was going to say I haven't used Bard either, but I have played with ChatGPT, and if you haven't, you should. It's kind of amazing. I think, and I actually think I heard you say this originally, Jan, is this idea that you get used to using something like Google and you learn how you type in your phrases to pull up the results that you're looking for. And with these AI interfaces, you have to learn sort of a new syntax, a new way of typing in your queries to get the information that you want out of them. It's not a Google replacement, but it's a complement, right? There is definitely something incredible about these things. As far as the GPT goes, I haven't seen Bard in action. Sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just gonna say, I have not used Bard either. I'm also in Canada, and like Jan said, it's closed off to us. So, but in terms of Chat GPT, it was, what I found interesting was the GPT-3 originally, right? And then the transition to GPT-4, there was this big discussion around, oh, it's just gonna blow everything away because of the model size. And I haven't noticed it significantly different, but still a phenomenal tool. And there's great ways to use it for SEO.
Yeah. Also, I signed up for Bard. I think there's a little bit of a wait list, and I know it's funny because all of our panelists are located in Canada, so I guess maybe I'll speak a little bit to this as someone that's located in the US. But you can sign up for Bard in the US, and you do need to use a personal Gmail. So that is something there. And then I do see a question about, using AI for your SEO and just for content in general, and kind of that concern, right? Like, what is Google going to think of these things? They actually did release a recommendations and kind of their thoughts on that. We actually shared that on the DBA platform LinkedIn, but I can follow up with that link at the end of this webinar, and I can also include it in our email and with the link of the webinar and everything. So I'll kind of have that as a note just to kind of give you guys some more information on what Google's actually saying about Bard and just about AI generated content and their opinion on that. So.
Yeah, so go ahead. So I just read a post on Near Me Media by Mike Blumenthal, and he was testing it out. He was testing Bard out for local, and so it unlike ChatGPT, which had an old database of information, it's not up to date. Bard, you can say like pizza place near me or something like that, and it can spit out results for you, although it's kind of just like a list, and then it doesn't show the reviews and things like that. But I'm sure they're going to be upgrading it. So I don't think the rankings are going to be any different necessarily than the regular 3-pack, but and I think really Bard was rolled out because Bing did theirs, and then Google like, oh crap, we're falling behind. But Google, probably wants to work on it a lot more. So there's probably going to be tons of changes in both for Microsoft and Google on the integration in their search. And so it's and there's so many like add-ons for ChatGPT. Like it seems like it's very premature to start like, okay, how do I implement this in my process? Because there's just so much new information and coming, and it's changing all the time. But definitely you can integrate some of it in your process, for example, like writing to help write your Google post, for example, right? So you can say, write me a Google post about XYZ topic using NLP words and what kind of voice you want to put. So it's really good to help efficiency in writing. So if you're doing a lot of writing, it can really help start that kind of content or put a list together for you. There's tons of ways to use it, to not necessarily for local, but in general as a SEO optimizer or content writer. You can definitely help you along a much faster, and it makes it writing a lot more efficient. Go ahead, Kev.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things is that the ChatGPT stuff, it seems like it's this revolution, this new thing. And Google's been doing this for a long time already. And they open sourced it in 2018, I believe it was, and released it, their natural language processing model. So, and I believe that has led to the development of the platforms we have today. So, and then the other thing to just keep in mind is ChatGPT has a very small network that is pulling data from, and in comparison to a company like Google, right? You have all the Google Drive, you got email, you got basically everything everybody uses on a regular basis. They have access to that information. And I think it was, like you said, yeah, maybe a rushed thing releasing it, but I think we'll see it develop a lot very quickly.
Yeah, I heard part of the problem why Google didn't want to go, because again, I think they probably weren't doing all that stuff internally, and they didn't release it to the public. Part of the reason was because it's so much more resource heavy than the typical search. And so you have to think about how much computing power Google has. And it seems infinite, but it's not infinite. And so if millions and millions of people start using it, it's really going to put a drain on their resources. So they probably were trying to make it more efficient in a certain way before they released. And they kind of Microsoft forced their hand in a way to put this out there. So that's why I still think there's going to be tons and tons of changes. Just we just have every day there's something new on Twitter. There's new how do you use it for this? How do you use it for that? And even ChatGPT, like if you use it from the beginning, it was a lot more open in a certain way, and they just lock things down, and it won't tell you certain things now, or it loops and yeah, they're just it's kind of but it's a race, it's an arms race right now, and we'll see who comes out basically.
Yep. And I think we kind of touched on it, but Ryan was kind of asking in the Q&A, he's heard that Google recognizes AI generated content, which makes sense based on what Kevin was just saying about how Google has had this developed and it's part of, how their systems operate. And so he's kind of asking how will using AI content, will it negatively impact the SEO results? And I'll kind of let them speak to this. But one thing in the blog that I'll share that Google posted was that they understand that creators are going to be using AI to generate content, but their recommendation is to make sure that content creators using AI are producing content that follow those EAT, I believe it's like EEAT, and I don't know the exact acronym that Google uses, but producing those qualities, right? And I think those qualities include like authoritativeness, trustworthiness. So I think generally what you're hearing is use the AI, but add the human element, right? You should be using that as a starting point for your content and not the start and the finish. You should be using it to aid your content generation and not relying on it solely.
A few years ago, you could research something. I think a good example, I was looking for a camera to buy my partner at Christmas time. And I was looking for a particular model, and I did a Google search, and I found a page which was ultimately just gibberish that somebody had spun together to game Google with an affiliate link over to Amazon. There used to be a lot of that. It was easy to find a page that ranked well. That was really nonsense content. And Google's gotten really good at filtering that out. It's not that it disappeared off the internet. It's just that you don't find it in the search results anymore. And so I have seen a study, a study was a case of one, but somebody built a website entirely with AI generated content, and it was ranking, and then the rankings tanked. And so Google is clearly, their policy does state that they don't want AI generated content. They're going, if they're out to gun it down, I would argue that they'll probably figure it out eventually, because they did figure it out with that spammy content. That said, they seem to struggle with reviews and some other issues on business profiles to some extent. But I think, when they put their mind to it, they can figure out how to produce good search results, or the search results that they want to produce. And if they're saying no AI content, I'd be cautious about it.
If and this is just a personal perspective, if I was in their shoes and I wanted to find all the AI content, or I wanted to, and then this goes with maps too, and some of the updates that we've seen. If I was trying to find that stuff, I would let it go. I'd let it be the Wild West for a bit, and then you'd have a core update come in. And once all these things start popping up, now they're all ranking. If you allow it, all of a sudden it's going to push this specific language, this specific terminology. And there's tells in a lot of the AI content if there's no human intervention in it. And so but once it's all surfacing, then they can just do a clean sweep, wipe it all, and then all of a sudden the rankings are back to what it was before. And so then now they have a larger database to collect and learn from, because everyone's been using AI, writing all this stuff. And then they can look at what kind of language is it producing. If somebody writes it and just does a straight AI piece, and all of a sudden it starts ranking, that's just learning. That's just training for the language models. So the more information you're going to be inputting using ChatGPT or these other AI language models, and then as Google allows it to rank or whatever they're doing, yeah, you're just feeding the beast, and then it's just going to keep adjusting.
Yeah, and one thing that the AI can't do is it can't pull in new information, right? It can only use what's already existing. So one way to differentiate yourself if you're writing a blog post or something is to, especially if you're local, use examples like, we worked this job, this was where we were, or these are the pictures, the local picture. Like you put a more personal spin on it instead of just generic information. And the generic information might be good, but I mean, honestly, I've worked on a lot of dentist sites, and how many dental implant pages can you write that are different from each other? They're all the same. So if you personalize it a little bit, it takes more work. You got to get the client to give you examples and things like that. But that's where the difference is going to be, because the AI can't add new stuff. So if you want to keep ahead, you have to give a little bit extra from a personal and less generic type of article or content that you're creating. All right, we got some questions. Let me see.
I was going to say, I think the main one kind of connected to this conversation, I'm not sure if we'll have the answer, but Lisa was kind of wondering about what you guys think will happen with the AI detector when the GPT-4, or maybe it's called the GPT-0, comes out. But I think that might kind of go back to what Kevin was saying about the Wild West and us just seeing it as it develops.
Yeah, it's going to be messy in the beginning, and it always is. When there's new technology, it's disruptive, and we just got to deal with the mess for a little bit until the big platforms figure it out. And then, I mean, that's my take on it.
One of the best things that I think happened is Google's release of their quality rater guidelines, the update to that. So adding the experience, not just expertise, into that. And Alita Solis, I don't remember if that's how you pronounce her name, but she has a spreadsheet that she put out that you can download, and I can send a link if people are wanting it as well. It basically walks you through those quality rater guidelines and questions to ask about the content to see if it would pass that. And it's a great sheet, awesome tool. So if you guys want, I can share that.
Yeah, Kevin, I don't know if you have access to the chat. I might just have access, but I'm sending those few articles that I mentioned earlier about Google's blog posts that they sent out about AI content. So I dropped that in the chat for everyone to see. And that's in the chat section for everyone that's on the call. I know that we've all been using the QA, but I wanted to send out something to everyone. So in that webinar chat at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the blog post from Google about their stance and recommendations on AI content. And then I also dropped our guide on Apple Business Connect. I saw a couple questions asking about, how to get started. One question said that Apple thinks they're on mobile, even though they're on desktop. So that that guide might help a little bit with that process. And you may just have to close out and try a different browser. Obviously this is still new for Apple too, so there might be a little speed bumps along the way, but hopefully some of those help.
So I did share it in the chat there.
Okay, perfect.
I don't know if anyone else can see it.
No, I think it went to just us. But I'm gonna send it out to everyone. So
Yeah.
I just sent that out as well. So that should help with the content generation as well.
Super.
Yeah, they're just helpful questions to go through and look at the content and go, does it answer this? Does this article demonstrate this?
Let's see if we have any other questions too. If you guys, if anyone on the call has general questions, I know we've been talking a lot about Microsoft, Apple, AI, but this is our panel webinar. So if you want to ask any general questions about SEO, optimization for your Google business profile, all of those questions are encouraged and welcomed, especially with the handful of experts that we have on the call, this is a great time to kind of get those nuanced questions answered directly from the source. So feel free to start dropping those. It looks like we have a little time to kind of dig into some of those questions. So we're happy to do that with you guys.
And the good thing is we haven't talked about Google problems this webinar. Like there have a lot of times the beginning where I give the categories and I say, here's all the bugs. And I haven't had to this time because there's really nothing like across the board that's bugging out on Google yet. Kelly, I think your sound is out. I don't know if you're.
I have been having audio issues. I'm back, right?
Yeah.
It looked like a really good story.
It was a great story. I think you guys missed out. No, I was just saying we have a lot of resources that we're dropping in the chat today, and we'll make sure to send that out with the recording as well. And I also just wanted to invite everyone on the call to join our private Facebook group. We have been posting more in there, and it's a great community if you're wanting to connect with others in the SEO industry, and you're more than welcome to drop any questions that you have on the daily in there as well. So we shared all of that, and we'll share it again. And then I'm not sure what was heard. So if you guys have any questions just about general SEO, feel free to drop those in. We have a few minutes to get to those.
All right, let me go through a couple quick. So that one's the Google with Eat. So the one, Kevin, I think that you had is that Google Doc with the Eat questions from Google directly produced. So I'm not sure what that means, but I think you said it's a SEO that basically put this together.
Yeah.
Very smart person, and
you can go and read Google's quality rater guidelines. They've published extensively on it. So what they did is they went and updated those guidelines, and those questions are pulled from those guidelines. So it's not specifically from Google, but it's somebody's interpretation of the guidelines that Google has published.
All right, we got a basic question. How often should I publish posts in my GBT? If you could do it weekly, go ahead. Google says do it weekly, but if you have nothing to share, then every 2 weeks, even once a month, at least there's something. I don't know if you guys have any different opinions on that. Yeah, because it just helps with engagement. It also helps in getting some of the justifications when you have those keywords in there. If you could do it weekly, if you have a way to do it, and you can repeat, if you have a cycle, if you have a quarterly or even a yearly, so you can recycle the same post. If you have multi-location business, you can publish the same post out to all your locations. There's no like duplicate content penalty for that kind of thing. So those are just some basic questions that normally come up. You can reuse the same post over and over. And then let's see what else we got. We got a DBA question. So will the aggregator in DBA put a business on Apple Maps? So Kelly, you can answer that one.
Yeah, so within DBA platform, we have our local listings. So all of our local listings are citation management. All of that pushes out to the core directories, which Apple is included in that. So now that we're building out that API, not only will you be able to submit business information to Apple, but once we get that additional connection built, you'll be able to post for those different things. So
just another question quickly, does Local Falcon push data to the new Apple API? So it's not Local Falcon, it's DBA, just to make that distinction. The Local Falcon just does the rank tracker section of it, and DBA does all the citations and the management part of this. All right, there's a big question here. Let me find it again. Is there any main things for 2023 to optimize for your GBT? I don't think there's been anything new in the last few months. So if you have do all the stuff that the best practices and all the things that we've been talking about the last few months, but I'll let the other two guys answer. Is there anything new about Google Business that we should be paying more attention to in the last little bit?
Yeah, there's some evidence now, and I want to say Joy Hawkins maybe came up with it originally, and Darren Shaw's done a little bit of exploration in it as well. I'm running some tests, but I don't have any results yet. Adding services to your business profile seems to influence rankings currently. It didn't a few years ago, and what Joy did was study it a few years ago and say, hey, it doesn't matter, and study it again and said, hey, actually now it's moving the needle. And there seems to be some evidence that it might be really quite helpful. And it might be temporary, we don't know, but if it is in fact the truth, and if it is ongoing, I mean, it's definitely something you want to do. You should be looking at your services anyway, right? Making sure that all the services that you offer are listed on your business profile. And when Google makes automatic suggestions, you should certainly comb through those and accept the ones that apply to your business. It looks like today it might actually impact rankings significantly.
So I just want to make a distinction, because I do work with Joy, and I've been part of those tests, and I've tested on my own listings, and we've had this for a few months, to be honest. So sometimes we don't release that information immediately because we want to take advantage of it a little bit. It's not necessarily adding services, it's adding the pre-selected services. So when you go into your listing, and you'll see Google will there's a lot of predetermined one or pre-select, like you have to go and you pick the ones that Google has given you as a choice, as opposed to writing one up yourself. So that's what's helping, not necessarily new ones that you're adding, but choosing the ones that Google has populated for you will make a difference for the keywords in those services. So that's the distinction there.
Got it. There was one follow-up to that, is just asking to share an example of what a pre-selected service might look like or be.
Yeah, if you want to handle the questions, I'll pull one up on my screen so I can share.
Yeah. Do you have? I might have to pass the access back to you. Do you have access to share?
Yeah, I think I had it from the beginning. So go ahead, and while I type around here.
Okay. Let's see. Sorry, I'm pulling back up the questions. So we answered how often they should post. Stefan and Kevin, I might be passing this one to you guys, but we have Ronald, who has had a client that hasn't been able to get their business verified on Google. They've been dealing with it for over 6 months. They don't send the postcard, and the video never works. Any thoughts, suggestions? They probably need to escalate that to the Google support team, right?
Yeah, I'm wrestling with that myself right now, actually. You can definitely contact support and ask for help. In my experience, contacting support just leads to them saying, hey, please do a video. And I've been through the video verification process 3 times. So from an agency perspective, it's really tricky because you've got some client remotely who's got to go shoot the video for you. So you don't even know what's happening on that end. And, you know, whether it's a technical issue, user error, or if they, you know, where it's going wrong. The forum is probably a good place to go if you've already contacted support. But whenever you're going to go to the forum looking for help, make sure you go to support first, because that is the normal support channel. And they should be able to help you out with most things. If it fails, then go to the forum with your case ID and see if they can help. At this point, honestly, I don't know if there's a bug in the video verification process or not, because I have seen a lot of bad results. But like I said, I wasn't there and didn't see what was actually happening at the time, didn't see what was on the screen. So it is tricky anyway. I don't know if unreliable might be a better word, but support followed by the support forum for anything, really.
Right. Ronald, hopefully that helps, and clearly you're not the only one struggling with that issue, so I hope it gets resolved for you. In regards to kind of the topic that Jan is looking into right now with the services, we have, let me find it. Sorry, I'm scrolling through these. You guys are coming in with the questions. Great.
Just give me back access and I'll show my screen real quick. It's just
okay, perfect. One question, as I'm passing the access back to Jan, in relation to the services, Jan, is just someone asking about, you know, what is too many? They had a client with like 70 plus services. So I'm not sure if like there's a point that it starts hurting you, and maybe it just kind of depends.
I haven't seen anything. Stefan might have a different answer, but I haven't tested like mega putting tons and tons of them to see if it actually hurts you. If it makes sense, if there's a different keyword in your services, if that's what you suggest, if that's what you work on, then put it. I mean, I don't see why not. I haven't seen any. Yeah.
As long as it's actually related. I think that's where it would hurt you, right? If it's you're just going off the wall with services that don't apply to you.
Yeah. So if you go into your services area and then you pick add more services, you will see these. You know, Google will give you some ideas of what to pick. So let's say I do software consulting. By clicking that, and then, saving that, that's going to help you rank better for when people type software consulting, as opposed to if you add a custom service and you write software consulting, that won't help you rank. So it's the ones that are pre-selected that will help you. So the services are set by depending on what your categories are. So these are your categories that you've chosen for your business, and each one of those will have its own subset of listings as you go through them. So you can add more. Like right now, we only have software company as a primary category. We don't have any secondary categories in this listing here. But if you add secondary categories, it's going to say add more services under each one of those secondary categories groups, and then you can check each one of those to see if it has add more services, and then pick the ones that definitely make sense to you. So that's how it is.
And you can change that primary category if you're like a seasonal business, right? I think I've heard us talk about that before. If you're sporting goods, maybe one time of the year, things like that kind of.
Yeah, you can change it. HVAC
Awesome.
and AC, you can change those type of things.
We had a couple questions kind of going back to just posting. I see a couple just asking about posting daily. Is it overkill? Is posting every day too much? Can it hurt them in any way? Is it okay if they choose to post every day?
Go ahead, guys. I'm talking too much. Pick it up.
Well, I don't think there's a specific right answer on this. I mean, my experience has been the posting, it drives more conversions, right? It provides more, and demonstrates more authority in what you're doing and creates more awareness. So can you post too much? I don't see why. I don't see how you could post too much. Can you post too little? Well, I guess that depends on who your audience is and how often they're checking it and whatnot. So I don't think there's a specific answer in that. Just do what you can. And then, like Jan said, once a week is a great number.
I'll just add, Jan mentioned the word justifications earlier. And so just to explain what that is, in the search results, when you see a listing of business profiles, some of them will have a little blurb underneath with a little icon beside it. And it might say something like their website mentions the thing that you just searched for, or it'll have a snippet from a review that in that snippet, it includes that phrase that you just searched for. So those are justifications. Google's basically looking at various things it knows about the business from their business's website, from the reviews, from the post as well, and pulling those into the review, into the search results to say, hey, this is as a justification as to why they pulled them in, right? This business really does meet your query. So Google does look at the post content, and you will sometimes see the icon is looks like a little blue star with a white exclamation point in it, I think. And that basically means, hey, we found what you're looking for in a post from this business. So creating posts with the keywords that you think your clients or your customers or potential customers are looking for is certainly valuable. And that might speak to what Kevin was talking about in terms of driving conversions. So I have not seen any evidence that posting too much hurts your business profile. So if you feel like you can post every day and create relevant posts, then I don't see a reason why you wouldn't.
Cool. All right. Donnie, concerning my services that I just showed, so I didn't say not to add custom services, but in our tests is that when you use the pre-selected services, we've seen a very large boost in rankings. Not every single time, but it does work very well, as opposed to if you type in your own custom service, it doesn't necessarily provide that boost that the pre-selected ones are. So don't add custom services. If there's something that's there and Google doesn't have a pre-selected one for you, go ahead and add them in. It can't hurt you. 100% can't hurt you. All
Awesome.
right.
I think we might have time for one more short one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which one we want to pick out of this.
There's a lot. Everyone started putting questions right in the last 5 minutes. Everyone got warmed up.
Yeah, I think we're running out of time here, but we'll try to get to a lot of these questions on our Facebook page. And I think that's a great resource for everyone that's asking these questions. That's why we have this Facebook page. It's a community, you know, of SEO experts, and Jan answers a lot of questions himself. So make sure to join, request to join that Facebook page, and we'll grant you access, and we'll post all of the resources that we talked about today, from the blogs to the video to this recording. So we'll post that all on the Facebook page. So it's great to be on there, just because that's where you're going to get direct answers and updates from the DBA platform team, from Jan, and from the community. So make sure to hop on there, and we'll make sure to post all of the follow-up items there as well. So
Super. We're taking one more. We got 1 minute.
yeah, do we have time?
Yeah, we got. Okay, so Todd, this is he's asking about how the website is a factor in local rankings, and how do we optimize that. So it's a large question, but I just want to confirm that yes, your website does influence the map rankings, and so there's lots of SEO articles will say how to optimize for local, like how to make a local landing page and how to best practice that. But definitely what you want to do is make sure you have a page for each location, and also a page for each service. That's the minimum, and try to match the service to your Google profile service. So you have, if you're picking a category, make sure you create a page that matches that category. So you want to try to emulate that, confirm what you're putting on your listing to what's on your website. So make sure those things are matching. So that's a huge question. I just want to throw it in at the last second. Yeah, and
Awesome.
everyone else, you can leave your questions at our local Facebook group, and I'll hand it off to Kelly to
yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you to our panelists that joined today. We really appreciate it. And I think everyone that joined, we got a few thank you messages too. So thank you everyone who joined. Join the Facebook group, ask your questions there, and we will do our best to get to them. And if you have any suggestions or future topics that you want covered, don't hesitate to reach out. We do these monthly, and so we'll continue this cadence and hopefully provide further updates on some of these hot topics. So we appreciate everyone joining, and I hope you guys all have a great week. Bye, y'all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See ya.